Greetings, Love Posse. What if the story you've been telling yourself about struggle, survival, and suffering isn't who you really are? What if healing doesn't mean becoming someone new, but remembering who you were before the world told you you had to suffer to be worthy? You can heal, but first, you've got to let go of the struggle story. What is the struggle story? A default narrative most people defer to that's rooted in trauma, hardship, and an identity around suffering. Common signs you're living from the struggle story or a struggle story. Most often you say these things to yourself or others. I can't win for losing. Nothing ever works for me. Why am I the one who's always suffering? And another question is, who's going to save me? For many of those caught up in the cycle of suffering, it can feel like a familiar home, cozy, natural, comfortable, especially if it's generational and ancestral. Here's some roots of suffering. The ego's attachment to suffering for identity, attention, and worthiness. This attachment can lead to subconsciously attracting more and more suffering. For example, Trump voters. Most of them were poor or uneducated, immigrants, elderly. These groups tend to attract and live from a struggle story. Therefore, they attracted more struggle by voting for Trump, and that's what they're getting. Another root of suffering comes from religious and spiritual teachings that glorify pain, martyrdom, and sacrifice. For example, most religions practice some form of prostration, right? Lowering yourself. They say it's to teach humility and respect. But what are you doing? You're lowering yourself to, they say, to God or a spiritual teacher. God doesn't ask us, one, if God exists, which is a video I've already posted. God wouldn't ask you to prostrate. That's a human thing, right? It comes from insecurity. And if you're a spiritual teacher, why are you having your followers bow down to you? Ego, right? Ego coming from insecurity, coming from a feeling of being less than, not worthy, or maybe thinking that you're better than someone else. Therefore, having people to prostrate is actually symbolic of sacrifice, them sacrificing their own ego, who they are, can also be painful. Then there's Christian religion, Lent, right? As a sacrifice could be painful as well. In Islam, Ramadan, sacrifice could be painful as well. In Christianity, they have pimped Jesus as the mascot of pain and martyrdom and sacrifice, right? He was nailed to the cross. He gave his life in order to save you. Again, glorifying pain, martyrdom, and sacrifice, and wanting you to aspire to that. Aspire to pain, martyrdom, and sacrifice so that you can feel worthy or closer to God if God exists. But so that you can feel worthy. And Buddha left everything, right? His wife, his child. In the spiritual community, suffering is huge. Suffering means, a book deal. It means speaking engagements, workshops. Think about it. That's what they tell you. Tell your story of struggle, of survival, of suffering. All of that equals big money. In the New Age spiritual community, glorification of this. That's why so many people are addicted to it, aspire to it, have no idea that they attract and create their own suffering. And most people who are experiencing struggle and survival and pain and suffering, what is the first thing that they do? Blame. Blame others. Look outside themselves. Blame others rather than go within and ask the questions and look at, what am I doing or not doing to create my own suffering? They have no idea that if they're following some spiritual community or some religious path, that suffering and struggle is embedded in the principles, the ways of being, the ways of getting closer to the divine. You're told that you have to sacrifice. You have to give your life in order to be worthy and worthy of this God. Healing isn't about erasing your past. It's about choosing not to live from your past. Pain may be a part of your journey, but freedom comes from not needing or requiring pain to validate your journey. Most people believe that their worth comes from how much they've endured. What if you can reframe this belief and tell yourself, I no longer believe that my worth comes from how much I've endured. If you are hanging on to a struggle story, here are some reflection questions I pose to you to help you to begin to let go of your struggle story. Number one, who would you be without your pain story? Number two, what identity is attached to your suffering? I suggest that you do some journaling. Those two questions can be journal prompt questions. They could also help you to create a tapping script to help you to begin to let go of your struggle story. Remember, I'm here to support your tapping journey. I am a tapping practitioner. I've written a number of books on tapping. Tap That, my first book. Tap That 2, Healing the Death Trauma, a tapping grief spiritual book. My children's book, Tap Tap Tracy's Hair, God Made It Special. It's about teaching kids how to process the experience of being bullied with the self-help tool of tapping. I also have an award-winning documentary film, Tapping with Autism. Another suggestion to begin to let go of the struggle story. Tell a new story and say it out loud. You can say, I am allowed to thrive. I am more than the pain, the struggle, the suffering I've experienced. Whatever you do, whether it's journaling, whether it's a tapping practice, whether it's breath work, whether it's saying out loud your new story, do something and do it now. In closing, Love Posse, I leave you with this. You can heal. You are already whole, and you don't need to hang on to pain, struggle, and suffering to prove it. I leave you with this question. What part of your struggle story are you ready to release today? Thank you for your time, Love Posse. Peace and love to and for all sentient beings.